The city was alive in its usual chaos, horns blaring, people rushing, and conversations overlapping in a noisy rhythm. A sleek black luxury car pulled up near the sidewalk, instantly drawing attention. From it stepped a billionaire, impeccably dressed, his mind buried in a phone call discussing numbers that could change markets. To him, the street was just another backdrop. To everyone else, he was untouchable. Near a broken streetlight stood a homeless girl, no older than 13. Her clothes were torn, her hair messy, her face marked by the dust of the streets. People passed her every day without noticing, but today, her eyes were locked on something terrifying. A delivery truck, its brakes screaming, was swerving out of control, heading straight toward the spot where the billionaire stood. She opened her mouth to scream, but the noise swallowed her voice. Her heart pounded violently. She had learned one harsh lesson on the streets: hesitate, and you die. She watched the billionaire step forward, right into danger. The crowd remained oblivious. The truck came closer. In that moment, the girl realized no one else would act. If she didn't, a man would lose his life in front of her eyes. Fear froze her for half a second, but survival instincts took over. She ran. Barefoot, desperate, ignoring the shouts around her, the homeless girl sprinted toward the billionaire. He turned slightly, annoyed, just as her small hand struck his face with a sharp slap. The sound echoed unnaturally loud. At the same time, she shoved him backward with all her strength. The billionaire stumbled, losing balance, his phone flying out of his hand. Shock and anger flashed across his face as he fell hard onto the pavement. People gasped. Some screamed. To them, it looked like an unprovoked attack. Less than a second later, the out-of-control truck smashed into a metal pole exactly where the billionaire had been standing. Sparks flew. Metal twisted. The impact shook the ground. Silence followed, heavy and terrifying. The girl stood frozen, breathing hard, her hands still trembling from the slap. She knew she had crossed an invisible line. On the streets, touching the powerful never ended well. But she also knew one thing with certainty: if she hadn't acted, that man would be dead. The silence shattered into chaos. People shouted accusations. Phones were raised, recording everything. Security guards rushed forward, grabbing the homeless girl roughly by the arms. She cried out, trying to explain, but her words came out broken and panicked. She attacked him, someone yelled. Throw her in jail, another voice followed. The billionaire lay on the ground, stunned, his face burning from the slap, his mind struggling to process what just happened. To the crowd, the story was simple: a dirty, homeless girl had assaulted a powerful man in public. The girl trembled as security tightened their grip. She had seen this before: how quickly the world turned cruel when you had nothing. Tears streamed down her face, not from fear of punishment, but from the painful knowledge that doing the right thing didn't always mean being understood. Sirens wailed in the distance. The crowd grew larger. Some people spat insults. Others shook their heads in disgust. No one listened to her frantic words. She lowered her eyes, bracing herself for what she believed was inevitable. Slowly, the billionaire pushed himself up. His ears rang. His suit was dirty. But then his eyes drifted to the wreckage, the bent pole, shattered glass, and the deep marks on the road. His breath caught in his throat. He stood still, replaying the moment in his mind. The slap. The push. The fall. His gaze shifted to the exact spot where he had been standing seconds earlier. Cold realization hit him like a wave. He wasn't angry anymore. He was alive. If she hadn't pushed him, if she hadn't slapped him, he would have been crushed. His heart pounded, not from fear, but from truth. He turned toward the girl, now being restrained like a criminal. For the first time, he really looked at her, not as a nuisance, not as a homeless child, but as a human being who had risked everything to save a stranger. The billionaire raised his hand slowly. His voice, calm but firm, cut through the noise. "Let her go." The guards hesitated, then loosened their grip. The girl collapsed to her knees, sobbing. The billionaire approached her carefully, kneeling to her level. His voice softened as he asked why she did it. Through tears, she told her story. She once had parents. A home. Schoolbooks. Laughter. Then one rainy night, a drunk driver took everything. With no relatives willing to take her in, she slipped through the cracks of society and landed on the streets. Life taught her lessons no child should learn: how to read danger instantly, how to act without thinking, how to survive. When she saw the truck, she didn't think of consequences. She only thought of stopping death. The crowd listened, silent now. Shame replaced anger on many faces. Her dirty clothes no longer looked like proof of guilt, but proof of struggle. The billionaire stepped forward, his presence commanding immediate attention. The same crowd that had been shouting moments earlier now fell into an uneasy hush. He raised his voice, not in anger, but with calm authority. "This girl saved my life." The words landed heavily. People exchanged stunned glances. Some lowered their phones in embarrassment, others swallowed hard as realization dawned. The security guards released the girl completely, stepping back as if ashamed of their own assumptions. The billionaire turned toward the wreckage again, pointing at the crushed metal and shattered concrete. "If she hadn't acted when she did, I wouldn't be standing here." His voice cracked slightly, betraying the fear he had barely begun to process. A mother in the crowd hugged her child closer. An elderly man wiped his eyes. The girl stood trembling, unsure whether to believe this sudden shift in reality. Just minutes earlier, she was a criminal in their eyes. Now, she was being looked at with awe. Silence wrapped around the street, not the empty kind, but the heavy silence of collective guilt. For the first time, the crowd understood how close they had come to witnessing a death, and how quickly they had judged someone based solely on appearance. Without another word, the billionaire removed his tailored coat. It was an expensive piece, clean, warm, and worth more than everything the girl owned. He gently placed it around her thin shoulders. She froze. No one had touched her kindly in years. "Thank you," he said quietly, meeting her eyes. There was no audience in that moment, no cameras, no crowd, just two human beings bound by a single instant of courage. The girl tried to speak, but her voice failed her. Tears rolled freely down her face as she clutched the coat, overwhelmed by the warmth, both physical and emotional. The crowd watched in disbelief. Gratitude from the powerful was rare. Gratitude toward the homeless was almost unheard of. Someone began clapping. Then another. Soon, the entire street filled with applause, not loud, not celebratory, but respectful. The billionaire shook his head, signaling them to stop. "She doesn't need applause," he said. "She needs a chance." The billionaire made a call, not to his lawyers or assistants, but to his personal foundation director. Within minutes, arrangements were set in motion. A car arrived, not to take the girl away as punishment, but to bring her somewhere safe. He knelt beside her once more. "I won't force you," he said gently. "But if you want help, it's yours." No one had ever asked her what she wanted before. She nodded slowly, afraid that saying yes might make the moment disappear. The billionaire smiled. A small, genuine smile, and helped her to her feet. That night, she slept in a clean bed for the first time in years. She ate a warm meal without fear of it being taken. Doctors checked her injuries. Counselors listened. For the first time, the world didn't feel like an enemy. But the billionaire didn't stop there. He enrolled her in school, arranged therapy, and ensured she had stability, not charity, but dignity. He understood something crucial: saving her life wasn't enough. She needed a future. The story spread like wildfire. Headlines called it a miracle. Social media crowned her a hero. Interviews were requested. Donations flooded in. But the billionaire declined every interview. "This isn't a show," he said. "It's a responsibility." Instead of fame, he quietly expanded programs for homeless children. Shelters received funding. Schools opened doors. Her story became a spark, igniting change far beyond one life. The girl focused on healing and learning. Slowly, the fear left her eyes. She laughed again. She dreamed. She grew into someone she never thought she could become. Years passed. On a bright stage stood a confident young woman, educated, strong, and compassionate. She spoke to an audience filled with leaders, donors, and children just like she once was. The billionaire sat in the front row, older now, listening proudly. She ended her speech with a soft smile. "I slapped a stranger to save his life," she said. "And he gave me something greater in return, hope." The room erupted in tears and applause. Some moments change a life. Some moments change the world.